Senator Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise to give my support to this appropriations bill 2018-2019. Madam President, in the late 1970s or the early 1980s, it's about 38, 39 years ago, there was a series of lectures on the CBC television by the late famous Professor John Kenneth Galbraith, QC, economist, diplomat, public official, author, taught at Harvard University and others. He served a number of presidents: Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and Lyndon Bird Johnson. He wrote about 4 dozen books on economics and the depressions of 1929 and 1954. And with all of that background, he died, of course, at the ripe old age of 97 in 2006, born October 15th, 1908. And he was asked, what is the role of an economist? Professor Galbraith just respond to offer suggestions. To offer suggestions. A man with all that brilliance, that was his simple response when asked the question, to offer suggestions. And of course, that might be verbal, but of course, if it is written, it becomes a proposal or a set of proposals. Madam President, I reflected on this because economists don't wave magic wands. They cannot create any miracles. And simply in our society, everything is wrong if it doesn't suit them or they choose to speak on it. And again, I quote Professor Galbraith. They are there simply to make suggestions. Because if you take a whole room full, however big or small that room may be, and you ask them their opinions, they will probably give you how many there are, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, or 15 different opinions. So, the confusion that was created in people's minds, Madam President, in our society, and not only in Barbados, elsewhere, is because the opinions of different economists, this will work, that will not work, this should have worked, that will not work. And that is why we continue to have this confusion in the world, and and kind of the breaking down of establishments like we had between 2000 and 2007 and 2008 that led to the kind of recession that we had in the world and still sort of grappling with, Madam President. The passage of an appropriations bill is to keep the country going. Keep the country going. in our regard here, it is the law. In fact, it's the real budget. Because by law, as the Constitution requires, is that an appropriations bill, in fact, that is what we discussed in the Senate debate, not necessarily estimates. We debate the appropriations bill. That is what we should. Because the Senate is not here to block the path of government. This Senate was not set up for that purpose. So it's not about being a rubber stamp. And if we were to operate in that kind of atmosphere, what have taken place in the United States in the last, I wouldn't say 4 years, on the last 4 occasions, let me put it that way, of not appropriating funds, and therefore you led to these breaks in operations in that country. Because filibustering, and because of whoever's Obama is the black president, or because it is a Democrat, because of the Republican, or what the case may be, we will hold up funding, and therefore certain sectors of that country has to come to a halt. We can't afford that in Barbados. We can't afford that in Barbados. And the same way that we say that everything cannot be placed into a law or an act, it is the same thing like in the appropriations bill, that everything cannot be reflected in an appropriations bill. It cannot be and it will not be. That is why there are supplementaries. That is why there are negotiations outside of an appropriations bill for funding for certain established or for certain concerns. You can ask any of the officers in this parliament to go and bring you a set of estimates from 1950s, 1960s, and you will see what the budget would be or was at that time. 25 million, 50 million. Today we have a $9 billion economy. That is what, look how far we have come. Look how far we have come. That in itself is progress. So if we think, or those, not necessarily in here, believe that getting up and referring to all of the challenges, we call them challenges, because whatever man invent can circumvent. And there are challenges and they will be corrected. They will be corrected. It takes money to do it. It's a whole technological concern going on with the sewage. So there's no magic wand. I have never, I do not recall it, apart from 1976, when the damn tornadoes jumped up and down because unemployment rate was 21%. And the others thump the table, 21%, as though they were happy that unemployment was at 21%, because we just came out of an oil crisis. So we have people now who jumping up because there are problems with sewage on our streets. And I said in a previous debate that like it only would satisfy certain people if they see the cabinet out there with hoes and shovels and boots. To satisfy certain people in this country, that something is being done. The waterworks, the employees from the Barbados Waterworks have not yet stopped trying to deal with a matter. I'm not going to go back and how long it started, was very right or wrong. I know Information tells me that there were 1 or 2 Trinidadians that work on that project were sent back because they weren't happy with how things were going. And they were sent back home because the project was talking too much. So to lay blame here and at the feet of a government, and I will have something to say a little later on. Madam President, I want to look at certain aspects of the Appropriations Bill. And with all of this reduced expenditure and cutting back and all of this, the government still taking that responsibility to keep this country going. You have heard my colleague spoke about how we've been funding projects and keeping this country going in the past. I'm not going to repeat what he said, except to say we've been borrowing, we've been working hard, but at the same time we've been paying our bills. We've been paying our bills for a country that produces little or nothing. To get foreign exchange out there to come in this country, all we can rely on is people. And those people are called tourists. But I'm not going to get to that yet. I have a few words to say on that. But I want to deal, Madam President, with health. Could you imagine that the government of Barbados, there have been cuts already, because, as I always like to use the demonstration, a government operates on revenue and expenditure. And if one is coming in short of the other, or if revenue, to make it more clearly, if revenue is coming in short, the expenditure can be reduced, but it cannot be completely wiped out. Where would we be today? What would happen to this country? Could you imagine eliminating any or most of the primary healthcare services in this country? Laboratory services at the hospital? Nutrition services? Any of the 9 polytechnics in operation where you wouldn't see people, pardon me? Polyclinics. I got it here, sorry about that. Polyclinics, Madam President, in operation. What about hospital services, whether at the QEH or the psychiatric? What about the disabled? What about the drug service? What about the elderly at the 6 institutions? Geriatrics, St. Philip, Gordon Cummings, St. Lucie, etc. What about those with AIDS? What about environmental health services? Sanitation unit, animal control, vector control. Madam President, this is what the Appropriations Bill is all about. The Appropriations Bill is about putting food on the table. It is about taking care of your people, whether they're elderly or whether they are minors or children or what, students or whatever the case may be. Could you imagine that you put a considerable reduction in those services in a small place like Barbados? But if you cut off a $25 million and opponents to the government behave that way, although they know differently, the government does things unless there's a need. And we like to follow the rich United States of America and how some people are living there. About 30,000 people were held off the streets between December, January, out of the worst winter that we have had for a long time, putting them in bonds and warehouses. That is the United States of America. That's sending people to the moon, sending them displaced, sending warships all over the world, all of that kind of thing. And that is America. We don't have 30,000 people on the streets in Barbados. I was on the board when we opened that shelter in the old Hinesbury School. I was on the board at NAB when we opened the home in Sergeant's Village. So that in a small country like Barbados, where you always have to be doing things for the vulnerable, with little or no resources, people feel it must continue. Yes, but it takes money. It takes money. And I think that sometimes this political divide and opportunism, I say in here what it disturbs me. That after all of these years, we still get the same behavior, the same outlook as people who wish to get into government. I say I do not like it. I thought we'd passed that a long time ago. I really thought so. And I'm in the evening of my political involvement. After 15.5 years, I don't know how much longer I'll do this. I really don't know. Well, I have to calculate for every 5. But I'm serious. I'm serious. But that means you have to know when to step off the boat as well, too. You know, I'm serious. I am very, very serious. Because although we know politics, we know it's not a Sunday school, I am alarmed. I am alarmed to see a country with little resources, doing so much that people just want to know. They're getting school free, they're getting free books, they're getting free this, free medical thing. Where else does it happen? It don't happen in the big United States of America. I keep referring to them because we felt that that was a heaven. I grew up feeling it was a heaven. Like everybody else that wanted to get there. But to realize at this stage of my life that no matter what the challenges are, I am living in one of the best places on the face of the earth. Because we are able to do so much with so little. And we never seem to be pleased. We've just had a terrible hurricane season. The gods were on our side. Those terrible hurricanes pass us. I went and destroyed a number of islands. And of course, certain states, United States of America, in Florida and in Texas, where a lot of people lost their lives. But you know, we still complain. We still complain as though the Prime Minister of Barbados is responsible for the problems at the sewage project or what's going on in Christchurch. You better be careful. Take heed, take warning. But we have come such a long way that we feel we're in such a perfect atmosphere that nothing can go wrong. I really don't feel that way. I feel very grateful. I feel very thankful because I know from whence I came. That is how I feel about myself. Madam President, I want to look at the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Youth. This ministry has been doing a tremendous job under the Honorable Stephen Lashley. Former public servant, trained in public relations, and he really handles his ministry well. There's no question about it. How can we ignore, for example, Madam President, in these challenging economic times, the restoration of the Dr. Joseph Hackett Theatre? We're on the bottom floor. The National Art Gallery is placed once again on that bottom floor because it was there before. A transformation of some sort to the National Cultural Foundation that continues to perform with excellence and not the confusion that was associated with it before. In fact, Madam President, we saw the improvement we started under that ministry when the Honorable Steve Blackett took over in 2008. The Cultural Industry Authority that I think most of us was in this Senate when we supported the passage of that act. We have had improvements, Madam President, to the gymnasium. The National Sports Council and Kensington Oval seems to be sorted out. Madam President, you know, one doesn't feel very comfortable when you have to speak about a place that you've worked at or been employed at, same thing. I worked there for 8 years. And I have enjoyed more good times than not so good times. But Madam President, the politics at Kensington Oval can have to be looked at and regularized at that institution. It's going to have to be. Because I understand our government has spent some hundred and nobody knows the real cost. I have not heard an exact figure. Some 130, some 140, some 150, some $160 million. Nobody seems to know the real cost there. I'm not going to say everything I pick up down there. But my understanding is if there's a change in government, that is going to be turned over to the Barbados Cricket Association. What the future arrangements will be, I don't know. But for government to have spent that money, and should never be locked into that agreement down there, to just hand it lock, stock, and barrel, it would be a serious crime. I hope it never happens. I don't expect it to happen because the Democratic Party is going to retain this government in the interest of this country. Madam President, the National Sports Council, and I think in a lot of these government departments, there's too much politics. Do your work. You can support who you wish to support. Go in the booth and vote for who you wish to vote for. Nobody knows what you will do. But the politics in some of these government departments that spending taxpayers' money, and the politician, the minister has to be abused, trying to scratch the head to get money here, get money there, reduce here and spend there. It's terrible. I want to give an example about the National Sports Council. A candidate for the Democratic Party in the 2013 election reported to our annual conference that he had called there, the National Sports Council, to have a field cut cleared. The person who he spoke to said to him, anytime you call here, do not say you're from the Democratic Labour Party. The Bible is going to pass on your information. Can you imagine that? Could you imagine that? That taxpayers' money being spent. These people drawing a check, a government check every month, or a government salary. And that kind of thing could be taking place. We know it does, but it's not right. It is not right. I wish to say, Madam President, Coming back to Kensington Oval, I heard an engineer said, an engineer is not a poo-poo engineer that is just tighten up a bolt or undo one, but said that those buildings down there, because of course there are more than one, we can say stands if you wish to, was commissioned too quickly. They were signed off on too quickly because there was a lot of bad work that took place on those buildings down there. And it's probably the kind of money that nobody today don't even know how much was spent. I haven't seen a final figure in a document at all. And we cannot allow the kind of politics that taking place at Kensington Oval to take place down there. We can't. Because that building, with all of the, what is it called now? This kind of cement that they put on buildings now, it's not a cement, it's a kind of, huh? Not trouble plant, huh? Huh? You finish that, you put on it, man, it's a mock thing, I call it a mock thing. Down there dropping off.
Cladding.
Huh?
Cladding.
Cladding? I think it is that. No, not trouble plastic. I trouble plastic. Yes, Madam President. Well, you know, it's an interesting debate, so things will happen around the table. But Madam President, Madam President, I must say that a lot of errors have been made. Things I wouldn't repeat here because, as I said already, it's not easy when you spend some time with a place that you have to come and speak on it. And part about it is taxpayers' money involved. It's not in anybody coming in anybody's personal pocket. So it has to be spoken about. It has to be spoken about. And something must be done there. Must be done down there. With that project, with that entity, with those buildings, with those stands, are using every title there is in the book so that people can clearly understand that something is to be done at Kensington Oval. We can't have this shouting from a minister and shouting from a president and everybody knows where everybody else is aligned to. That's why I mentioned there's too much politics around the taxpayers' money in some regard. You can't have that. Madam President, I want to look at education. Education, Madam President, speaks for itself. Whether primary, secondary, tertiary, teacher training, at whatever level, nursery, skills training, education, it is. So basically, we do know what education is all about, no matter at whatever level. We have about, 21 secondary schools, about 68 primary schools, about 15 nursery schools. We got the university, we got BCC, Hospitality Institute, school meals. Could you imagine that if you were talking about reducing expenditure, what would really have happened in this country or could happen if any of those learning institutions or learning centers or programs were to be reduced or even eliminated? And that is why you have expected revenue and as well as an expenditure. Deficit between yes, it's a big thing, but talk about balancing. I'm not an economist. I am not a figure person. But as Mahatma Gandhi said, live like if you die tomorrow, you'll die tomorrow, and learn as if you live forever. I try to learn. I never play no enough. I try to learn. And I'm saying that you're trying to rile up people because the government had to reduce the funding at the University of the West Indies, still paying the costs, but I've asked the students to subscribe to their education by paying the fees. Now, the government pays the cost. Madam President, a promise has been made to reinstitute or reinstate those fees by the opposition. I don't know where they get the money from. But there was a report that came out in 2012 that recommended that those students pay something towards their education. Something like a 5% or whatever that is. And the Barbados Labour Party embraced it. Which went to the Beckles Commission. The Barbados Labour Party embraced it in their 2013 manifesto. Madam President, this is the proof of the pudding is in eating. And right here on page 55, Barbados Labour Party, on page 55 of the 2013 manifesto. 2013 manifesto, beg your pardon. Support the program for tertiary education as outlined in the report of the Beckles Commission on Higher Education 2012. That's their manifesto. But yet we're going to restore this, and we're going to restore that, we're going to restore all types of things, but not saying exactly where the funds are going to come from. Madam President, I want to look at tourism. The parliamentary secretary in that ministry is here, and of course she will probably give more details, but I think that what has been happening in tourism, that every single person in this chamber should speak in a positive way on tourism. Because in 2017, between cruise arrivals and stay-over visitors, we have had some 1.5 million people here on this island. Maybe the same day or the same time, but during the year. Because of the hard work that took place in that ministry, led by the minister, Honorable Richard Seeley. But even that is being diluted from the opponents of the Democratic Labour Party. Even that. Oh, what about the spend? I know you could go and push your hand in people's pocket and take out the money and tell them how much to spend. You are able to get thousands of people in Barbados. Thousands of people by boat and by air. But we are not satisfied. And sometimes I know the rules and so on, but you know, not only that, but you can embarrass certain places and so on. I'm not going to call, but I went into a bar here about 2 weeks ago. Last week, Monday. I went to some bar, you didn't really went to drink or anything, yeah. To some extent.
You ain't careless.
But all I saw in that bar was people spending money. Spending money. No, that's a little bit. Spending money. And all I saw in those cashiers and people moving about was US dollars. US dollars. I mean that we are not grateful. Oh, the spend was this before. It is not this now. taking into account or not taking into account that there was some recession in this country. Sorry, in the world. And I remember in 2010, I brought up the statistics done by the experts out of Australia to show you how tourism has gone down around the world. It is back up now. It is back up now. And according to the United Nations Tourism Organization, Hunte, it is estimated that international tourist arrivals increased by 7% in 2017 to reach 1,322 million arrivals. This is above the trend of 4%, which has been recorded since 2010. And that is where, despite the recession started in 2007, 2008, but 2010 is when the tourist operations around the world really start to hit home. And I remember I read out that report in here in 2010. It is the strongest performance in 7 years. Europe, with a growth of 8%, was above the world average, with this performance being attributed to the Mediterranean destinations. Africa was also above the world average, also recording growth of 8%. Asia Pacific grew by 6%. The Middle East by 5%. The Americas by 3%. But you know, that is interesting. That figure by the Americas is very interesting. And you know what is contributing to that, Madam President? The Americas, of course, you know, USA and Mexico, and Canada, and Venezuela, and Brazil, Argentina, etc. Now, International Air Transport, IATA, reported on airline performance, stated that for 2017, passenger kilometers grew by 8% in year-on-year in November 2017. Based on performance in previous months, it was expected that 2017 will record performance above the 10-year average of 5.5%, though not as high as 2016. But listen for this. IATA also reports that while robust economic backdrop is helping to support outbound passenger demand in North America, this growth is offset by a negative impact on inbound travel to U.S. from the additional security measures involved in traveling there. See, United States of America is the center of operations again. So that because of the security measures which they have put in place is affecting tourists, arrivals, departures, etc. in the Americas. So you see, people are going elsewhere. Africa getting it on the thing. Asia getting it on the tourism. I remember, not that he had to say it for me to know it, but I like to give Jack his jacket. Senator Adams said just a week or two ago, that is the most resilient industry in the world. And that is true. The statistics here bear you out for your comment, because it is true. It is the most resilient. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. That might be true. But tourism proving that is so. Because if something is happening at one side of the world, the people go on the other side. If it's happening at one side of the world, so tourism will have to be accepted. Because when it was done, the report said that. I came in this chamber, and I read that report. in this chamber to show tourism is down as a product around the world. But we were saying, oh, only in Barbados, only in Barbados these things happening. And the minister, that is why I have to say something about one of the best ministers of tourism this country. I mean, in fact, I don't know how much he will talk about that this country has ever had, because he got up off his behind and did what he had to do to promote it. They didn't come here just because they hear about Barbados, like the Bulgarians that war robbed the ATMs out here. They came here because they were marketed. They came here because of that. And that is why I have to congratulate those ministry officials, because no one man is an island, each and every one of them. Some good things have been happening in the ports as well. Training has been taking place down there, and John Marie is doing a fantastic job down there in that port. Fantastic job. A fantastic job. And I got the report in there. I mean, they're making money at both ports. They're making money. So, Madam President, the industry that keeping the talk about in the estimates, imagine intelligent people, the estimates, there ain't nothing that they show you how you can get foreign exchange. But estimates will show you how you get foreign exchange. And appropriation document will ever show anybody how to get foreign exchange. This is about allocating funds to ministries to do what they're supposed to do. And one of the ministries being allocated the Ministry of Tourism. So where else is going to show, oh, this type of money is well, how are you going to do it? Because I can't repeat it. This is nonsense. It is so much nonsense. There's nothing in these estimates or this appropriation bill to show you how you can get foreign exchange. Then we heard the record by my colleague, how we've been gathering our foreign exchange over the years by either borrowing or through tourist receipts. And we know that all do not go where it should go. Let me put it that way. We know that. We know that. So, when I say that I sort of get so concerned to hear this kind of, excuse madam, the description, but this lower primer. And the word really primary, Madam President, but I want to use in the Basin Express. This lower primer talk. I mean, we need to rise above that. We've come a long way. We have come along in terms of tourism, and I know I said it 1,000 times, but I repeat it, from 37,000 visitors to this island in 1961 to what it is today. And we're still talking like primary school persons on matters that are serious and reach university level, so to speak, as far as our tourism is concerned. We have gone up, we moved past that. It has established itself as the most important industry to keep this country wheels greased and going. Stop playing it down, man. Stop using it for political purposes. You people come here about how much they're spending. Well, go in the pocket and take out the money then. I don't understand it. I was telling me last night he was on vacation in Canada, and a friend of him sent a clip showing 13 airlines. 13 on the tarmac. You got it there? Madam President, not you, Madam President. I mean, let us move up. Let us move forward. Let us move forward. You will never, I don't know how large we'll be able to build an airport in the future. The only country that I know of that I've read, I've heard it before I read it, because I used to read the books and that kind of things. I do my research otherwise, but now you can sit down in front of the computer and do what you got to do. And look for where you want in seconds. And they build a mammoth seaport. Where Kuan Yew come from? Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew. Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew, what you call, transform that country. Lee Kuan Yew, His Excellent Ella Walton Barra, Forbes Burnham, Pierre Trudeau, and Michael Manley. They're all schooled in Britain. And they went back to their homelands and become prime ministers, and all of them have had a track record. Each and every one of them have had a track record, because maybe they said at university, we got to do something for our country. Not put it down. They went back home to build it up. Not every day up on the front page, you see sewage, and you're seeing this, and you're seeing that. That's the only way that we can advertise Barbados, when there are such problems in other parts of the world, including, for some people, they haven't. No blasphemy here. United States of America. That got tremendous problems out there. I want to look, Madam President, at some countries that have had some serious challenges. I spoke about the United States of America and over 30,000 persons that were on the streets, and they had to try and hustle them, get them into barns and different places in the United States of America. I want to speak about Angola. Angola is a country that has very large oil reserves. But of course, we know that oil took a dip recently, and all those countries that were big exporters of oil have suffered tremendous drop in revenue. And about December last year, let me go to Barbados. December last year, I heard this lady on the BBC, and she was saying how hard, I don't know how hard things are, I don't know, we need to change the government. How hard things are in Angola, we need to change the government. The government in Angola changed, and the value of the Kwanza currency was 168 to US dollar. The government changed, but that could double if it ain't ready, if they go to the IMF. That's to simply say you know what you got, but you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know. And I always say, I say it all the time, because I mean, there's nobody could object to it. We don't even know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, apart from I might got to end my speech. But we really don't know. And that is why Professor Galbraith must be referred to. And like me, I would refer to him as a layman, because economists would be too big up to go along with Professor Galbraith. But I heard that over 30 years ago when he was questioned, when he was asked, what is the role of an economist? And he said simply to offer suggestions. And anybody who can beat that, will beat it. Some things work out, some things don't work out. But there's no magic wand. There's no magic wand. I don't know how much of you know this or came across it. But I always look towards Senator on the far right because of his knowledge. And this thing I got with Senator Carmichael, because we share a lot. Not his riches, I'm a poor man, but we share everything. How many people know that there's a world toilet day? There you go, you get beat to it. World toilet day. And some little terrorist is running about some constituency talking about 5 people or 6 people got a water toilet and look how backward the place is. You imagine that? But I ain't fully out in the field yet. I know engineering. I know engineering. But 700 million people in India still using, defecating in the streets and still using toilets in India that sending rockets, go all kind of way. But we down here with 5 world toilet day, probably only sell. You don't even know Bangladesh next year doing better than them. Terrorists. You don't even know, Madam President. Madam President, I hope you know, because you're a woman that knowledgeable. I can tell you, you just get there smart here, do all the research and so on. But World Toilet Day, there's a day called World Toilet Day that exists mainly in India with 700 million people. 700 million people that still defecating in the streets and all sort of thing. Imagine that. Can't you over 1 billion people? So that when we get about this place in my country and crying down, I mean, it burns me. We have come a long way. We have to be grateful. We have to be thankful. I am. I can tell anybody, I am grateful and I'm thankful because I know from whence I came. One of the things I want to touch on and Bangladesh. Thank you very much, Madam President. Some 600,000 refugees also in Bangladesh, and they move past that problem of toilets. Now, the IMF, Madam President, the IMF a couple of months ago said Venezuela has defaulted on 2 debt payments, on interest and other payments. I wonder how Standard & Poor's and Fitch compared that development with Barbados, who has not defaulted. I'm asking the question. Barbados do not have a reputation of defaulting on any loans, but we get all of these downgrades because they want us and think that we should send home half the public service. You're asking for a catastrophe in this country to have done that. I know, and I read what happened during Africa during the 1980s. IMF decimate certain African states. And I don't know how much they've recovered from it. I don't know. I was going on some other matters pertaining to tourism because I feel very strong about it, what it is doing for this country. And I think those persons, how they're performing and how they're working in that ministry need to be big up, so to speak. And I can probably speak on a lot of other things as far as tourism is concerned. But I leave the details of other matters regarding that ministry under the parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. She has her contribution to make. But Madam President, I am happy in a lot of cases, but distressed in others, because I don't think that my country is moving fast enough as far as their attitude is concerned. And be grateful. Be grateful. Some people working for salary, they're not happy. Because some people ain't got any, can't get any. We're glad for a job. They're not paros, all better than a paro. But if you used to get $20 extra and they're only getting none now or 5, they're dissatisfied. But the state must build houses for them, must do this here for them, must repair the roads that the rain make a mess of last year. Nobody wants to talk about those things. The road program would have started since last year. But we had tremendous rain. Fall almost every day in 2017. And now we're getting the fallout from condensation in the atmosphere because of the bad winter that we got. Every time you got a bad winter in the north, you always get I've been wanting to know for about 20 years. This is what you get, the condensation in the atmosphere, and create these showers that we're getting now and so on. We're far from a rainy season. So, Madam President, I obviously don't know when I will make another contribution in this Senate, at least on the appropriation bill. There's still some time to go. But whatever happens, I wish my country well. As long as I got life and I got strength and I got health, I will do what I will do to defend this government and to preach the gospel according to the party of which I'm a member of, the Democratic Labour Party. I'm much obliged, Madam President.